Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. For more than 40 years, the Townsend family of dealerships has been a locally owned company built on service and connection with its customers. And their experienced team can walk you through the whole process, side by side, from test drive to service oil changes and beyond. I've loved tooling about the southern backroads and super highways this season in a Townsend Honda CR-V. And now I'm hooked on the great gas mileage, the comfortable maneuverability, and that backup camera for parallel parking success. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. With Labor Day behind us, a bit of a break in the high humidity, and college football on the television, it's evident that fall temps are around the corner. This time of year, my mind doesn't turn to pumpkin spice. It turns to all things pasta. Craig Richards of Lyla Lila in Atlanta, Georgia, is a true pasta professional, having learned the craft under the renowned Lidia Bastianich, working with her and her restaurant group in Kansas City and Pittsburgh before moving to Atlanta to cook at Tavola. From there, he eventually became the executive chef of Ford Fry's St. Cecilia and the VP of Culinary for that whole restaurant group, honing his pasta-making skills and unique cooking point of view every step of the way. Lyla Lila is the first restaurant of his very own, and it welcomes diners with a warm hospitality and plenty of pasta deliciousness. Come back into its kitchen with me, virtually of course, and learn all the specifics about the art and the science of my favorite fall food. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Craig.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for chatting with me remotely today.
Of course.
And you are sitting in your car in Atlanta.
I am, in a parking garage.
Oh, good. So at least
that's very Atlanta.
But also at least there's shade because it is hot as hell.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little warm. So I really first must say I appreciate you feeding me until I was basically comatose a few months ago with all things delicious and pasta. And I just loved the whole experience. Your staff is amazing, Craig.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We work really hard behind the scenes on all that stuff, so I really appreciate that.
So you decided to open this restaurant after working for years, watching people be very successful in restaurants, and people will have heard all that information in the intro. But you opened it at a really crappy time.
Yeah, it was really a good opportunity for me, and I really loved the location of the restaurant. So it was my first time at being an owner, and everything was working great. And then, we opened in December of 2019, and then fast forward 3 months, and the pandemic hit. So I don't think it's anything we could have predicted, but it was certainly a very interesting first year as a first-time restaurateur. So,
Yes.
I mean, to say the least. So.
Well,
Um,
thank goodness that you had the visceral comfort of cooking, right?
Yeah, it's funny because when all of it started, we kind of shut down for about 4 days, and I had to lay everyone off, and then we had to figure out kind of what we were going to do, and it was just me and a few guys, and my partners were talking, so we decided to do takeout, and that's when it really just got back down to cooking. Just
Hmm.
that's all you were doing is just trying to make great food and make people feel comfortable and make them happy while they take this food home. So it kind of boiled everything down to the very simple part of just cooking to make people happy.
Right,
So,
right.
we did that for a few months, and then we reopened, a little over a year ago. And of course it was, kind of quiet, and it's just been kind of a slow build, but the spring and the summer has been really good to us. More people are out and vaccinated and things like that. So it's been much better.
Well, I want to just start with a bang and talk about pasta. And
Yeah.
I know that like people are going to flip out when they hear me say that because there is such like a people flip out about pasta, right? And there's
Yeah.
so many specific feelings about it. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a native Southerner and I'm really not good at making pasta. And I'm not good. I never learned what al dente, like my mom made spaghetti, which was great,
Yeah.
and she made
Yeah.
lasagna, but like I didn't really think about the noodles or any of that stuff until I got into this profession, and I still don't make it at home because I kind of suck at it. So it's a daunting thing to kind of make a cornerstone of your work. What about it captured you from the
Yeah, I
beginning?
think. Well, I kind of grew up like you did, just eating like regular spaghetti and didn't really think about it. And then I fell into Italian food early in my career. Working for Lydia, and that's when I saw obviously how big the noodle culture is in Italian cooking, and it really is the cornerstone of Italian cuisine. And working for her and being around fresh pasta and learning how to make pasta. And then I just kind of kept with it. I'd love to eat pasta. Like I could eat it every day,
Mhm.
and for a while, I think I did when I was at other restaurants, but I don't know. We just kind of kept working on it and tweaking it. And it's kind of a lifelong pursuit. Like you're
Mhm.
just always trying to make it better or make it thinner or how it cooks and how it reacts. And it's such an inexact science. I think that's one of the things I do love about it because it all depends on the temperature of the room you're working in, how much humidity, the feel of the dough, things like that. Like we've been training some people on making pasta recently, and it's really just have to kind of touch it and feel it in your hands, the dough and things like
Mhm.
that, and just kind of know how it feels and stuff like that. And then we also talk a lot about how it feels when you eat it, like what the mouth feel is like, or how something passes over your palate, how much air is in the ravioli and what that does to the texture as you eat it and things like that. So I think it's just something that you're always trying to pursue the perfection of it, but it never happens. But that's
Mhm.
okay, because you're
Mhm.
enjoying the journey part of it, I think. So, um,
And that's really interesting to think about, like the air inside of a ravioli. When you're
yeah,
explaining that to me, I'm like, yeah, that's really different,
yeah,
right?
that's kind of one of my secrets, I guess, and I guess I'm giving it away now, but a lot of people, when they make filled pastas, they'll press the air out. I always like to leave a little bit of air inside the pasta. That way, it has a lighter feel as it goes across your palate as you eat it because of that little bit of air in the pasta.
And really good pasta does taste very light, very different than my, rotini Tuesday
Yeah,
night from
yeah,
the bag, right?
yeah.
So,
But also, there's different kinds of pasta. Certain pastas should be
right.
light and thin. Other pastas should have a chew to them. And then across Italy, it just really varies by region or by town or village based on how they like to cook their pasta, make their pasta. different flours they use and things like that. So there's just probably hundreds of thousands of variations.
Do you have anything besides that tip that you've just shared with the entire world? Are you like a purist in anything where you're just like, you have to have it a certain way? You know, because some people will say, well, I don't use the pasta roller, I don't use an extruder, or, you know, is there anything where all your sous chefs know, don't do that?
No, not when it comes to like the production of the pasta. You know, I think we have our dough recipes kind of dialed in and things like that. We've all agreed on how thin we want the pasta, and that varies by chef and by restaurant. When we opened Lila Lila, I really wanted to make the pasta, especially the filled pastas, as thin and elegant and finessed as possible. We make our pastas and then they get frozen right away, and they go from frozen into the boiling water when you order them. So the pasta has to be resilient enough to be frozen, move through the kitchen, cooked, hit the pan, hit the sauce, cook in a boiling sauce, you know. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that as far as the recipe goes. I think some of the hard rules come when it comes to cooking the pasta, you know, making sure the water is salted. You don't put any oil in the pasta water because that washes off the starch of the pasta. You know, finishing the pasta in the sauce. So really I think the technical stuff more comes on the cooking side rather than the production side, because the production side, like once you have a recipe and kind of have a feel, it's pretty much set. But the cooking side of it has a lot more decision making and kind of split second decision making that affects the end product.
Well, everything at Lila Lila is really thoughtful like this.
Oh, thank
you. Not being Italian, and I was reading that when you were deciding your idea of how you wanted to be a chef, you thought, I could put your own spin on Italian food or your own point of view. Do you feel like you're achieving that? Because, you know, it's one of the great foundational cuisines, correct? I mean,
sure. Yeah, and that's a tricky subject because, you know, I think that I was really trained by Lidia in traditional Italian regional food, where there's a lot of kind of like a lot of rules, and you don't do this and you do that, and you can't call it this if you do that, and so I really learned all of that stuff, and some of that stuff I still go by. You know, if you're going to call something lasagna bolognese or cacio e pepe, you have to make that, and I'm not in any place to change a recipe that's been done for hundreds of years, you know. So, but I'm also I'm cooking for Americans in Georgia, so you know, we use a lot of local ingredients as an Italian chef would, and we cook them with Italian techniques, you know, in an Italian spirit. And I do think, like, I was talking to an Italian friend of mine a few weeks ago, and we were talking about it, and she loves my food. And I said, I think this is how an Italian chef would cook here in this moment in Georgia with the ingredients here, you know. And so she said, oh yeah, absolutely. And there's certainly things I picked up along the way, but, you know, I still want the food to be rooted in Italian cuisine. I want it to be Italian in spirit, because there's a difference between that kind of food and then just food cooked with Italian ingredients, you know. So, you know, you can put Italian ingredients together and call it whatever, but I don't know, like I always talk to the staff too, like you might have this dish if you were in this place. You know, it's not traditional to Sardinia or wherever, but you may have something like this if you were there, you know. And I think, like, you know, I know in Italy, a lot of chefs are handcuffed a little bit by tradition, where if they go off the tracks a little bit, then they get criticized by their staff or by their guests, I think. Whereas here I think we have a little bit more freedom without it just becoming something different, you know. And I think that my Italian training has informed my own food, and my own food has evolved and changed and over the years, over the last 16 years, really, since I started doing my own food, to what it is now and to what you had at Lila Lila. So
that's kind of fun to watch, you know, yourself, right? As things change.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know as a creative, you know, we were just talking off mic, you know, you produce things and you put it out and you don't think about it. It's like you with menus 5-10 years ago, because you're always thinking about what you're doing now. And so when you go back and you look at something, you read a menu or you pull out an old recipe, or in my case, I read an article that I wrote 5 years ago, you go, whoa, I didn't remember doing that. Also, I have shifted, I have changed. And I think that's part of the fun too, is this work, any kind of creative work, changes the worker as well
absolutely.
as the diner, you know?
Well, and I never want to remain stagnant. I always want to try to keep improving and getting better and taking chances, which not all chefs do. Especially, let's say, after the age of 40, it's easier for some people just to kind of settle into their ways and cook the food they've always done. But I've always tried to push myself, to push the staff, to get better and evolve. And like I said, take some chances here and there. I think that's when you take those chances, that's when the best product comes about.
When you are feeding yourself in the kitchen, what is your favorite stuff? Because, you're standing on the line, you got 15 minutes, and you're like, I got to eat something.
It's usually, if I miss staff meal, usually I have staff meal. We eat at 4:15, 4:30. If I miss staff meal, then usually it's our squid ink spaghetti. So it's right now, it's Calabrian chilies, garlic confit, some Georgia shrimp, some Calabrian chili sausage. It's got some kick to it. It's kind of surf and turf. I love squid ink pasta. So that's usually what it is.
And I know Southern Fork listeners are going to be asking this in their minds. Why? Why do you love squid ink? For the first time, I did not know squid ink was a thing until I was in Italy, and I was like, whoa, this is cool, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. Like, I think if you don't know it, people are kind of squeamish about it, which I understand. It looks different, right?
Right. It's
but
black.
It just gives it
is black, y'all.
Oh, it's black. Yeah. It just gives the squid ink gives the pasta a little bit more texture. So when it's cooked, it seizes the dough a little bit more. I don't know what the chemical reaction is, but I know that's kind of how it feels in your mouth. And then there's a slight salinity to it, like a sea salinity that I like. But I think it's probably the texture, to be honest with you, just the chew of it. I really like that.
Right. And visual cooking and eating is part visual too. It's really cool to have a super black pasta like that,
Yeah.
Because a lot of things when you're cooking, they will be really beautiful, like a eggplant. And then when you cook it, it's gray.
Sure.
And that's not as sexy as the purple eggplant that you cut. You're like, oh, whoa. That's very different. So this is neat because it starts out that way and it ends that way.
That's correct. That's a great point. Yeah.
I like to sit at the bar, and I requested that night to sit at the bar, and we're sitting at the bar. It is so much fun to sit and watch, and the wine program and also the cocktail program is totally on point there.
Oh, thank you.
But I was near the turntable. And so I must talk to you a little bit about the music selection there.
Hell yeah. That's a big part of the restaurant.
Right.
I've always been a music lover. Before we opened, I'm like, I want to have a turntable. And so we were, I've got a decent vinyl collection at home, and I wanted to get some more from the restaurant for the restaurant. I also knew I already had a pretty decently long playlist for the restaurant going. Because as I was thinking about the restaurant, I could hear what I wanted to play in the restaurant as well. So I kind of already knew what I wanted it to sound like. And that was something that was really important to me. And we were working with this media company, and they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. We can hook up the turntable, and you'll have playlists going. And then when the needle hits the vinyl, it goes straight to the turntable. And when it's done, it goes right back to the playlist. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that existed.
No,
that's
like
amazing.
I didn't either. Yeah.
I thought I'd have to run over there and change it every time. But, if we get too busy, then it just goes right back to playlists that we put together. I did it because it was something that I loved, but it's really caught on. People really have taken notice and really enjoy it. And now we do vinyl dinners and things like that. So it's something that's really taken off.
And when I sat down, there were 3 songs that I knew that were pretty obscure. Like they're from my playlist, not like you would just normally hear them in restaurants. They might not be super obscure, but they were not common. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I'm at home. Like I have a lovely bubbly something, and this is playing and pasta is coming. I am ready. This
Well,
is good.
that's how I see it too. Like it's to me, like you're just describing, that's kind of a great, perfect meal for me, right? Like you got some good music going on, you got some pasta, you got some good wine. Like I don't really know what else you need. Good company. Like that's about it, right? So,
Right.
um,
And
I kind of we always joke like we kind of create our own little world, and we just hope people enjoy being in it for a few hours.
I
So
like that. Now that you've spent time, because you've spent time, and I have to reiterate this, in some amazing Atlanta restaurants, and then outside the area too. I mean, as the exec of St. Cecilia, I mean that's nothing to sneeze at, of course, and it's an amazing restaurant too. But when you're thinking of that space of your own, right? And like, what would I do? And like, you're cleaning or you're making pasta. There's always times where your brain can zone out and you can kind of dream, and you're making
sure.
those playlists. How is it now being in there? And what is there been something that's really surprised you about it?
I think that, I think you have the idea of what the restaurant's going to be in your head, what it's going to taste like, smell like, sound like, everything. And then you get the restaurant open and you get staff and you get guests in the restaurant, and then it becomes its own thing. It's no longer just yours, So, I mean, certainly you can tweak things and change things and direct things. Again, I think going back to the music thing, how that people have really caught on to that. Because I want people to hear the music in the restaurant while they're dining. I want it to be present. Like sometimes you go to a restaurant, there's no music or you can't really hear it, but I want it to be part of the experience. And we've had a few people complain like, oh, it's too loud, whatever. But I think that I've always wanted that to be part of the experience because I like to listen to it. That selfishly, but people have picked up on it, kind of like you did. Like, wow, this is really great, or oh my god, I love this song, or are they playing the whole side of Prince "Purple Rain" right now?
I
Things like
know,
that.
right? Yeah.
So I think that's kind of surprised me. And then like I said, we started doing these vinyl dinners last summer, quite honestly, to drive some business. And now it's once a month. It's 4 courses with wine pairings, and we pair an album from our vinyl collection with each course. And we talk about music and food. And so, exploring that connection, music and food with guests and stuff, has been a lot of fun as well. And that's certainly not something I expected, when we were putting it all together.
And 2 of my other favorite places, Bastion and Nashville, in their tasting menu restaurant, they have a turntable.
Nice.
And then my Cheers bar, which happens to be one of the best wine bars in America, and I can walk to, Stems and Skins, they have a vinyl night every Thursday.
Oh, nice.
So I can go in there on a time when I don't know anyone at that moment other than the people working there, and I can just sit down and listen to a really great jazz album and have a really
fantastic.
Nice glass of wine. And it's music and food. That is such a connection. And I think it goes back to that idea that you briefly touched on about the Italian hospitality and the Italian style. Can you define that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the Italian hospitality to me is inviting people into your home. So people coming into the restaurant, it's like inviting them into our home. We always said that we wanted to, and I think this kind of speaks to Italian hospitality. We always said we wanted the restaurant to be a respite for people from everyday life. And this was even before the pandemic. So you can come in, you can forget about if you had a bad day or whatever, you can forget about everything really and just be in the moment. Great music, hopefully great food and wine and service and everything else, and just be present with us for a little while. I come from a family that my mom always loved to entertain and always loved to have people over and things like that. And that hospitality was just kind of ingrained in us as a kid, when I was a kid, in our family. And just to be gracious to people and welcome them And so that's just kind of carried on, I think, through my life and through my career. And it just happens to mesh really well with Italian hospitality and the food.
Yeah. I'm so hungry right now thinking back on this. Like it's 4:00 right now. And I'm just like,
it's getting close.
I'm like, oh, I could have a lovely beverage and go ahead and settle
in.
Yeah. So what is making you hungry right now? What are you excited about next?
I think I'm excited about fall food. I love fall food. When the weather gets cooler, some braised things. We're already starting to kind of do a little bit of that now. We're working on tweaking some braising recipes. We're doing this beef cheek recipe right now that's braised with cherries that I've never done before. That's really delicious. I love baked pastas. Our lasagna has become kind of our dish, but I really just love any baked pasta or any kind of one pot dishes like enchiladas or things like that, where everything's kind of baked together and all those flavors kind of cooked together. I really like that. And we haven't really executed anything outside the lasagna that's a baked pasta in the restaurants. We've been talking about that a little bit, about how we can do something like that.
Well, feel free to let me taste test.
Yeah, of course.
I'll give you the honest opinion.
Of course. Other than that, I don't have, it's so funny. I think like we're very creative kind of in the moment. Like when products come available, from farms or whatever, like, oh, we got this. Okay, well, what about this? And so we did get a lot of chanterelle mushrooms this year and dried a lot of them because we had a lot. And so I think we're gonna make a powder out of those and put those in a pasta dough with a beef cheek ragu. So that's a dish that actually that's the first time I've ever verbalized it, but that's a dish that we have probably coming up soon. But we're I don't know, we're just really good kind of like, oh, let's do this. And sometimes our best food comes about really, really quickly. The process happens really fast. Because if you overthink things, you tweak it too much, sometimes like the most instinctual, quick creativity is the best.
Yes. I can say that from somebody who lives in her head half the time. What is one aspect of your job that meshes like a puzzle piece with an aspect of your personality?
I have a very high energy level. I always have. And so that certainly meshes well with kitchen work and being fast and quick and thinking on your feet. I've always loved the creative process. I went to school to be a writer. I was in graduate school to be a writer when I started cooking. So the creative process to me is always very rewarding. It's always a lot of fun. So that meshes really well. My wife will tell you I'm a Capricorn, so like I'll always want to be in charge. So that meshes well, I guess, as a leader or, as a leader of a restaurant or leader in a kitchen.
Yeah.
Even growing up playing sports, I always wanted to be the captain. I always wanted to call the shots and all that kind of stuff. So
that's good. I bet that was a fun guest chef dinner that you did at Common Thread then. 3 chefs in the kitchen.
Well, there's a lot of guys there, but no, it was fine. Like I know John Benhage really well.
Yeah.
And they were super hospitable and great and a very, very talented staff. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good
and a
restaurant.
beautiful restaurant. I helped them prep some, but I mean, they executed everything really well. It wasn't a problem at all.
That's great. Is there anything keeping you up at night? Quick fire?
My ongoing to-do list, but I think that's probably the same with everyone. Making sure my staff is happy and making sure guests are happy. A lot of people's livelihood are in my hands, and I don't think that's unusual for any business owner or any restaurateur. But it's just maintaining a high level of everything so that the experience seems effortless and seamless, and there's a lot of work that goes in behind that to prepare so that it does come off that way. And that's the goal. So.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we didn't get to chat in Atlanta because I had to roll on out of there. I wasn't able to speak after all that pasta and wine. But anyway, I brought it to Atlanta. I always have it for Southern Fork guests. It's the Magic Picnic Basket. This is something that allows me to time travel. I can go back in time to conscript anybody to make anything you would want. I can source for you. I can cook a little bit. Definitely more fried okra, though, than stuffed squash blossoms or anything like that. I would love to bring you some of your favorite things in this basket. It's just really some stuff that brings you life and joy.
Oh, that's great.
So what would you like?
Oh, I mean, I love good olive oil.
Do you have a region that you love?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, Tuscany or Sicily, those are probably my two favorite olive oil regions. I mean, I'm kind of simple. Any dried pasta. I actually love like cheddar popcorn.
The white cheddar popcorn?
The white cheddar popcorn. That's my late night snack. Yeah. When I get home, like that and a glass of wine, I'm a happy guy, like after work.
I'm definitely spicy Cheez-Its.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Well, it's the salt thing,
Yeah.
So, and I have to say, like, I'm a big fan of any potato chips. We have like this chip challenge in the restaurant where we ask people to bring in random chips and we compare them. So, any chips, any chips are good. Gosh, what else? I don't know. Maybe a bottle of wine or something, I guess. I don't really know. I never get to do this. I never get to come up with what I want.
You're always dealing with what other people want.
Yeah, you're always thinking about what other people want. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But you eat because you have high energy, so somehow things are happening.
Yeah, it's a lot of protein bars, a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
My sous chef makes incredible staff meals for lunch. He's a Mexican guy, so he makes all kinds of great stuff.
Do you have a favorite wine varietal that is just your go-to?
I love Northern Italian whites, Northeastern Italian whites. So like Friulano and Sauvignon probably.
Nice. Well, if people want to learn more about Craig Richards and his new Midtown restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links there so that you can click through and see the menu. It does change seasonally, as you hear. As most of my guests on the Southern Fork, I love in-season cooking. I think it's the way we're meant to eat. But if you like what you hear, there are more than 240 episodes in the archives. So you want to dig in there, just like it's a big plate of pasta, and dig in and look for some other episodes to enjoy. But in the meantime, it is what I said. Time for dinner, and that means it's time for dinner service for you. So I need to let you go.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making time to do this today.
Of course, a lot of fun.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouthful. When I say that I'm not good at pasta, I really, really mean it. But I know that it's easy to get started with pasta, especially after chatting with Craig today. If you scroll through my Instagram feed, you might see a pasta that I made last year, and I am often really stubborn in the kitchen when it comes to purchasing new equipment. I like to keep it simple. I don't like unitaskers. Alton Brown, so many years of watching Alton Brown on Good Eats kind of taught me that, and I really don't have a KitchenAid mixer with a pasta attachment, and I don't have a pasta roller. But if you look at that picture, I really need one. I thought I could roll out pasta thin enough on my kitchen counter, but I am not an Italian grandmother. I was just trying this for the first time, and it really tasted delicious, but it was as thick as an old-fashioned piece of chewing gum, which is not really what I would suggest if we're going there again for Good Eats. So, as a thrifter, I will tell you that if you are interested in getting a pasta rolling machine or any kind of attachment for a mixer, check your local thrift store first, because people dump pasta rollers, they dump coffee makers and crock pots. Probably Instapots are next, because some people get these pieces of equipment as a gift, or they buy them and think they want them, and then they end up never using them. So as somebody who's always going to check there first, if I make pasta again, I am definitely going to use the pasta roller to make thin pasta because thin is delicate, tender, and will hold on to the sauce really well and cook in mere minutes. It won't be chewy and doughy in the middle like mine was that Saturday night last fall. So anyway, just some simple tips and I guess some vulnerability. Until next time, I will be cooking in my kitchen as you are cooking in yours. Have a great week.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?